If you've been thinking about getting serious with your money, like actually serious, now's the time. The Motley Fool is offering new members 50% off their iconic stock recommendation service, Stock Advisor. This is the same service that's crushed the market with recommendations that have returned 1,057% since inception, compared to the S&P 500's 180% over that same period. This isn't guesswork. The Motley Fool has a track record of finding companies before they become household names. So if you want to invest smarter and you like saving money while doing it, go to fool.com/listen to claim your 50% off discount off a 1-year term of Stock Advisor. Again, that's fool.com/listen. Returns of 1,057% are from the Motley Fool's product Stock Advisor and measured against S&P 500 returns of 180% as of July 10th, 2025. Past performance is not an indicator of future results. All investing involves a risk of loss. Individual investment results may vary.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
I got on internet dating finally, and I got on this new app. It's called A-Swipe. It's for Asians. It came with a free calculator app, so I thought I'd give it a go. It filters the girls by GPA, which I thought was convenient because I like smart girls. And man, I think it was just like beginner's luck or something, because I got action right away. And it kind of had been a while, like since the breakup. And so I was like a starving animal, you know? I was like a prisoner out of jail. So I just went right up in there, kind of eager style. I was like, oh. Yeah, I'm about to say the P word, premature ejaculation. And I did what any sane, reasonable guy had to do at that point. I jumped right off and I said, baby, we shouldn't do this. You might have grew up like that, but I have values, if you will. Do you have a printer?
Good morning. It's Wednesday, Apollo Wednesday, September the 17th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and Apollo. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you, Maria Bartiromo, then Varney and Company.
Street for a Wednesday. Adam Johnson.
Yeah, Maria, we're going to get a Fed rate cut today, and it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful boost for the markets. But I will caution anyone who's going to try to trade today, it'll be very volatile. Just step aside. Let the traders do their thing. Ultimately, it's good for the markets.
All right, that's good advice. Emily.
It's Constitution Day. It's a 238th birthday of the Constitution. What a perfect day for President Trump to visit the UK and remind them that we fought monarchy for freedom.
Yes, the Constitution Day. You're right. And what do you want to see out of this meeting in the UK?
I think we've had already some iconic fashion moments from Melania. I've been very excited to see that this morning.
She looked beautiful.
She looks
beautiful. Well, look, they were teasing some kind of a deal between the UK and the US on technology, and the president has been trying to align with other countries away from China on AI.
Yeah. Well, and remember, all the different countries that came forward and asked for a deal, it was UK that got the first deal, right? And then South Korea, Japan, etc. Then finally the rest of Europe. So this is a very special relationship.
All right, we will leave it there. Great to be with you this morning. Thank you so much. Emily Sturge and Adam Johnson, thank you. We'll see you again tomorrow. Everybody, Varney and Company picks it up now. Stu, take it away. Live from London.
All right, good morning, Maria, and good morning, everyone. President Trump has arrived at Windsor Castle. This is the start of a lavish state visit. The president brings money and AI know-how and support for a prime minister leading a divided nation that seems to be at a political crossroads. Populism is gaining ground here. The protests against Trump have been limited. The Brits need our president. I'm calling this MAGA meets Mega. Make America Great Again meets Make England Great Again. The special relationship appears to be off to a pretty good start. The financial markets, well, they're focusing on the Federal Reserve and interest rates. This afternoon, Jay Powell announces his rate policy. All eyes on his speech. Will it be a quarter or a half-point cut with more to come? Investors really want to know. Here's the market in advance of the announcement. Modest gain for the Dow, up about 60. Fractional loss for the S&P and also for the NASDAQ. Interest rates. We have the 10-year Treasury yield right around 4%, just above the 4% mark, 4.03. And the 2-year yield coming in right around 3.5%. Not much change there. Bitcoin quoted $116,000 per coin as of right now, 116.1. And then we have hate speech and what role did it play in the murder of Charlie Kirk? Attorney General Pam Bondi goes after liberal groups. The question is, how can free speech accommodate hate speech? A lavish state visit and a market figuring out interest rates. That's what we have on this Wednesday, September 17th, 2025.
And that was a little bit of Maria Bartiromo and Varney and Company. Back in a minute. Oh, nonprofit news now. Thank you. And now from an article in The Federalist, anyone who blames both sides after Charlie Kirk's murder is a liar and a coward, by Peachy Keenan. Never heard of Peachy Keenan? Yes. Quote, I'd like to see the nation heal, but we're dealing with a radical left group of lunatics, and they don't play fair, and they never did. Unquote. President Donald Trump. A member of my extended family posted a reel on Instagram immediately after Charlie Kirk's assassination, in which he wrote, he had it coming. Charlie Kirk was a monster. This is a person who spends all day posting reels about how Trump is an evil, fascist, Nazi Hitler, and prays that he dies soon. An old friend of my family said this to one of my siblings moments after Kirk's murder. Quote, good, there's one less of them to deal with, unquote. Does that mean he wants my sibling and me shot dead too? That would be two less of them to deal with. Now, I want to interject something before I continue with the article. A lot of times we're looking for who's at fault and whatnot, and that's good. We need to find that. But we forget to look in the mirror. And in this particular case, this person who's writing this article needs to look in the mirror. You want to know what's wrong? Look in the mirror. A member of my extended family posted a reel on Instagram. If this is this person, I'm assuming that you've known that this member of your extended family has been a hater I mean, literally a hater. When you're wishing somebody dead, you're a hater for a long time, and yet you continue to follow them. And then the next paragraph, an old friend of my family said, good, there's one less of them to deal with. And you still talk to this person? It's like Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity bragged about having a liberal friend. He bragged about having a liberal friend. He introduced the guy on his radio show. Say, hey, this is Joe Liberal or Larry Liberal. And he comes over to my house and has, on 4th of July and has hot dogs with me and the family. Why? Why? If you have liberal friends, why? If you have liberal people in your life, why? Okay, you're part of the problem. Okay, on with the article. I'm supposed to want unity with people like this. I'd rather have them stay at least 50 yards away from my property. Well, this is a person that's getting it. The only question is she going to go ahead and actually do that? Keep these folks at arm's length. We'll see. Back to the article. And now the official party of wanton assassination is busy making the case that there's extreme political violence on both sides. Immediately after the shooting, buffoonish Democrats like Jeffrey, Schumer, and Warren marched out to the microphones with convoluted messages about coming together and stopping violence on both sides. By now, the drumbeat of both sidesism is the aftermath of Kirk's assassination, and it has become a cacophony. Both sidesism is what I'm calling the irresistible urge for morally corrupt politicians and journalists to lay half the blame for Kirk's brutal murder at the feet of the right. In fact, the worst both-siders, even worse than the sneering Democrats who can barely contain their glee that Kirk is dead, even as they scold us for not being interested in unity, are sniveling Republicans and so-called conservatives. Quote, there's monsters in your midst too, intoned the New York Times' David French, who persists in claiming to be a conservative, but not a true conservative, I might add. As proof, they will present their list of right-wing violent attacks. To give this bare-bones list more heft, they'll go as far back as Oklahoma City, as that cretinous GOP Senator Lankford did on CNN. Lankford even had the gall to open his interview with Dana Bash by bringing up white supremacy. This outrageous formulation must be crushed into dust immediately. There's no moral equivalency. The both-siders are on the wrong side. Good for the author for using the W word here. Why are both-siders wasting time blaming the right after a vicious murder committed by a leftist? Shouldn't they be vociferously defending the innocent? The answer is that they're cowards. Exactly. They're too scared to call out Democrats for creating, supporting, and ignoring the evil that has taken root in their party. By insisting that both sides are guilty of violence, are giving the vicious left a way out. Allow me to add to this. Multiple transgender shootings and threats by transgender activists. This is the author's adding to this list of disasters perpetrated by the left. BLM riots, Antifa, church shootings, Trump assassination attempts, pro-life pregnancy center fires, Tesla vandalism, attacks against ICE agents, against police, and against federal courthouses. Don't forget punch-a-Nazi and punch-a-turf rhetoric. Whoa. Let's look at this here. There it is. Yes men who identified as transgender or transsexual, some of the most violent of the various Democrat shock troops. And we endure plenty of ancillary political violence. It was the left-wing violence that forced Kyle Rittenhouse into a trial for self-defense. It was left-wing violence that forced Daniel Penny into a trial for being a hero. It was the left-wing violence that wrecked countless statues, monuments, and businesses. It was left-wing violence that forced every right-wing anon on X to use a pseudonym, a proton email, and a tract phone to avoid doxing by maniacs. It's an old cliche by now, but everyone knows you can't wear a MAGA hat in a blue city. Everyone knows you might get assaulted, killed, or at the very least be screamed at, spit on, or have your car keyed. If you wore a Kamala or Hillary hat in a red city, all you'd get are eye rolls. This has been the case for a decade now. Democrats have never been asked to explain this. When I worked at Disney, I endured daily conversations where my coworkers would discuss how they hoped Trump would die soon, how dumb and evil conservatives were, how Trump was an actual Russian spy, who needed to be arrested, and how if they ever met a Trump voter, they would punch her in the face. And there I was, walking to Starbucks with them or eating lunch with them in the commissary. I would wonder what they would do to me if they knew I had voted for Trump. I still wonder. This fear of coworkers, by the way, is still the norm. Years later, at nearly every large corporation in the country, all my friends and family who work at these places live in abject terror, even now, that they will be exposed as right-wing. Why is this okay? Why have we just accepted this as how America has to operate? People at companies are getting fired for being happy. Kirk is dead. Does that mean closet conservatives can finally be themselves at the office? If both sidism is not rooted out, then we can't address the real root cause of this violence. Insane levels of propaganda by the media, leftist influencers, and celebrities that have slandered Christians, Republicans, and white people as irredeemably evil, racist, homophobic bigots. Both sidism is the shield they hide behind so they never have to repent. People who think like this cannot be allowed in positions of power over us ever again. A significant chunk of the Democrat Party lusts for the death of people like Trump, his voters, and me and my family. To them, we're the obstacle blocking them from entering their leftist paradise. Feminist Dish Rag magazine, Jezebel even hired Etsy witches to curse Charlie Kirk. They just because they didn't wear the cute green headbands and suicide vests doesn't mean they didn't wish the same outcome on all our heads. Therefore, if you're a both-sider, you're on the wrong side. For our own physical safety, we have no choice but treat you as giving aid and comfort to those who want more bloodshed. And to the performative calls for unity coming from the most egregious part of the right, like best supporting Senator Katie Britt, shame on you. Britt delivered an embarrassing call for unity and peace while Kirk's body was still at the morgue. Unity with people who hate us and want us dead is suicide. Right now, we need unity against the forces of darkness. Let Kirk's spirit be a light to us in dark places when all other lights have gone out. It's an excellent article in a lot of ways. It made a couple of mistakes, but overall it was judgmental, and that's the way it should be. That's one of the ways you defeat the left is with judgments. And we all have to look in the mirror. We all have to check who it is that we're calling friends. Who is it that we're having over to our house? Who is it that we're going places with? Are we going places with liberals? We got to ask ourselves, why? Why are we doing this? And isn't it long past time that we got rid of these people? Bill O'Reilly had an epiphany about this some months ago, where he, on his show, said, that's it, I'm done. All my liberal friends are gone. And it made me think at the time, why'd you have any liberal friends to begin with? Why do you want to hang out with people like this lady describes when she works at Disney that want to punch you in the face? Why do you want to have anything to do with them? Why do you want to continue working for Disney or any other leftist place that's going to have that kind of crap? Now, my show is also about the rank and file, you and I, and being able to go to work without having to fear anything. Like this lady says, she fears that her coworkers are going to find out, and she claims that there's lots of people around the country that are afraid that people are going to find out that they're conservative. And that's the whole idea of what I'm trying to explain to you is how their tricks work and how to use their tricks against them so that you end up with nothing to fear. So you can go to work each and every day not having to worry about it. So, but again, excellent article. Other than, I can't understand why she has these people that she's following in Instagram, extended family or not. It's time for them to go. And you can tell them if you have the courage, because I understand why you would be afraid of people like this, but if you have the courage, tell them, we're done. I don't want to hear from you anymore, and until you're ready to apologize and change your mind. That kind of thing. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, motivation.
Success, guys, a very, very lonely road, man. It's an uphill battle. You're going to see your shadow most often.
It's the lonely road. You're going to feel alone all the time. You're going to wake up earlier than everybody else. You're going to go to bed later. You're going to have massive swings financially, ups and downs. Why do I tell you that? That way, when these things are happening, you'll know, oh, these are signs I'm on the right road. Most everybody else will do this. The crowded road. It's well lit. There's navigational equipment. There's directions. Really good roads. The lonely road, it's dark. It's not well lit. There's a huge ups and downs, massive turns. Roadkill along the side of other people who quit on their dreams. The lonely one, there's yield signs about once a year. Just yield. Go back to the crowded one, man. Yield. Give in. Do the thing everybody else does. Listen to the haters. All the stuff they tell you. What's so bad about where you are? It's okay. What's wrong with you? Why do you want to be rich? Money doesn't mean anything. You're changing. Any of that sound familiar? That's all the lonely road stuff. That means you're on the right road. Don't yield.
Your thoughts are the currency in which you purchase your dreams. You have to think and believe inside yourself that you have the ability to respond when adversity strikes.
Success does not require you to look out the window. It only requires that you look in the mirror. You have to start taking responsibility for your life. That doesn't mean everything in your life is your fault. Some things that have happened to you are out of your control. But responsibility means I have an ability to respond.
I got me here, I can get me out of this. And I'm getting out.
Because it doesn't matter what happens to you. All that matters is what are you going to do about it? I don't care what happens in your life. If you're going to have energy, if you're going to have passion, if you're going to have drive, every day you wake up, you got to start with that vision. I want you to feel it. I want you to taste it. I want you to be able to feel when you're getting closer to it and closer to it. You got to have a dream party every day. You got to take out 10 minutes, 20 minutes, however much time you have, and you got to actually go in a room, close the door, and you got to see yourself doing it. You got to actually walk in it. You got to go in the future, live it out, come back in the present, and start working toward it. We just don't have sight. Sight is for people who live in the present. We have vision. We're going to make it happen before it happens. But when you're on the path to success, you're going to get hit in the face. At some point, you got to be tested by life. Suit up. And your problem is, every time you see a giant, you're ready to run. I'm telling you, you got to get in your spirit. When you see that giant, let that giant know, suit up. You're not about to make me depressed. Suit up. You're not about to make me lose my mind. Suit up. You're not about to make me live in poverty. Suit up. You're not about to mess up my life. Suit up. Let's go. Suit up. Pick your head up. So what? Your life is not what you thought it was going to be. You're going to be okay. You have something great in you. You can do it. Where you are is temporary. You will not be there for the rest of your life. I can. I will. I will my way through every situation, every trial, every tribulation. I will my way through it. I don't care if it's cancer. I will my way through it. I don't care if it's MS. I will my way through it. I don't care if I'm struggling in school and I'm trying to get a degree. I will my way through it. It's going to rain sometimes. I will. You're going to feel discouraged sometimes. I will. No matter what the obstacle, I will. I must. I don't care if you fail the boards. Go again. I don't care if you fail the law exam. Go again. Will your way through it. Some things you can skill yourself through. Some stuff you got to will your way through. And I went from a GED to a PhD, not because I'm smart. I will my way through it. And people respect when you have average skill, but you have phenomenal will. They respect when you have a trial and a tribulation, and you get through it. Beast mode is I will not stop when others stop. I will not quit when it gets hard. Beast mode is I will not complain. I will not worry. I will not fret. I will find a way when there is no way. I will make a door when there is no door. I will create a window when there is no window. I will create finance when there is no finance. I will find an opportunity when it doesn't exist. But I will not be defeated because I know what my desires are and I know what I deserve. So I'm telling you from personal experience, deal with it. Deal with it. And the sooner you deal with it and the sooner you overcome it, the sooner you get to your rewards.
Get right in the thick of it. Put your back into it. Put your will into it. Put your legs into it. Keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. Don't stop until you reach your goal. Don't let anybody stop you. Go harder. Go longer. Go faster. Keep going until you reach your goal.
The question is not if life is going to get hard. The question is, are you mentally tough to get through it?
Thank you, and now a little meditation.
Welcome to this 5-minute meditation. Begin discovering your true self today. In this short practice, you are invited to let go of thoughts, roles, and stories, and gently rest in the generous present moment. Allow yourself to breathe, relax, and notice that your true self is always here, silent, spacious, and free. Let's begin. Take a comfortable seat. Gently close your eyes and allow yourself to breathe deeply. Inhale calm. Exhale any tension. One more deep breath in and a slow, soft release. Now, for these few minutes, put aside all roles, all labels, all stories you usually carry about yourself. Let go of every description: student, parent, worker, seeker. For now, simply be here. Imagine your mind as a container. Do not fight them. Just let them drift away like clouds passing through the vast sky. Notice what remains when you do not hold on to any thought. There is a presence here, silent, open, unchanging. This is your true self. You are not the thoughts. You are not the emotions. You are the clear sky in which they appear and disappear. Always here, always untouched. If a thought arises, do not resist. Simply notice it and let it go. Return softly to this awareness, this stillness. Rest in this recognition. You are already whole. You don't need to become anything else. You already are. Now, gently bring awareness back to your body. Notice your breath, your hands, your feet touching the ground. Take a deep breath in and exhale slowly. When you are ready, open your eyes with a soft smile. Carry this quiet presence with you into the rest of your day. You are here. You are free. Thank you for being here.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Geert Wilders.
Voorzitter, alles wat ik heb gezegd kan. Alles wat ik heb gezegd kan. En wat u zegt, via u, meneer de voorzitter, meneer Timmermans. Weet u wat ongrondwettelijk is met uw praatjes van het mag en het kan allemaal niet? We gaan het gewoon doen. Weet u wat ongrondwettelijk is? Dat vrouwen worden verkracht. Dat is ongrondwettelijk. Dat homo's in Amsterdam door Marokkanen. Weet u nog dat rapport wat GroenLinks heeft een wethouder had weggemoffeld? Waaruit bleek dat het vooral Marokkanen waren waar homo's last van hebben. Dat is ongrondwettelijk. Waarom neemt u het niet van de slachtoffers op? En zegt u tegen de slachtoffers, ik ga jullie helpen en ik zorg dat het mogelijk is. In plaats van dat u mij nog gaat aanvallen met stomme regeltjes waarop het niet kan. Zorg dan dat het kan. Dat is wat we moeten doen.
And that was Geert Wilders. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Apollo.
Chapter 22. You've lost the engines? The morning of April 4th, 1968 was one more day in a year that was turning the United States inside out. The Tet Offensive, which had so intensified the debate over the Vietnam War, had occurred 2 months before. 6 weeks before, Minnesota Senator Eugene McCarthy, running for president on an anti-war platform, had shown surprising strength against Lyndon Johnson in the New Hampshire primary. Just the preceding Sunday, on March 31st, President Johnson had announced that he would not seek re-election, and in the days since then, the newspapers had been filled with speculation about whether New York Senator Robert Kennedy would enter the race. Also in the news, though less prominently, was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s current effort on behalf of the striking garbage workers in Memphis, Tennessee. This Thursday morning, King was in Memphis, awakening to the new day in his room at the Lorraine Motel. Within the world of Apollo, the outside world looked completely different. I missed the entire Vietnam War, said one, typical of many. I watched no television, read no newspapers, came to work at 6 in the morning and worked until nightfall 6 or 7 days a week for years. The people of Apollo were barely aware that the Vietnam War was going on, barely aware that this was a presidential election year, barely aware that there was such a thing as a war on poverty, or LSD, or Sgt. Pepper, or race riots. Had one of Chris Kraft's flight controllers been asked about the most important event so far of 1968, he would probably have said that it had occurred on January 22nd, when the unmanned Apollo 5 had carried a lunar module on its first test flight. Today, April 4th, was going to be the next important date of 1968, the unmanned flight of Apollo 6, the second flight of a fully operational Saturn V. That morning, Bob Wolf was Booster 1. The boosters, whose job lasted only the 11.5 minutes of powered flight it took to reach orbit on a Saturn V, plus another 6 minutes for translunar injection for the lunar missions, were always in an odd position in the motor. Just when the rest of the flight control team was getting down to work, the boosters went home. Bob Wolf had been pressed into service for this flight only a few weeks before, but he had been working with the lead booster for several months and felt no special apprehension as the countdown approached 0. Jay Green was Fido, Neil Hutchinson was Guido, and Cliff Charlesworth was Flight. At 1 second after 7 in the morning, Cape time, the 5 F1 engines on the Saturn S1C lifted the spacecraft off Pad 39A. All 5 engines operated nominally at first. At the 125th second of powered flight on the first stage, the accelerometers in the S1C began recording lengthwise oscillations in the launch vehicle, producing a chugging motion like a car with bad spark plugs, decelerating and accelerating. This type of vibration was known to rocket scientists as pogo, after the motion of a pogo stick. Pogo had been encountered in earlier space flights. The Titan that flew the Gemini spacecraft had experienced pogo. The Saturn V on Apollo 4 had shown a mild pogo effect. But never had the pogo been so severe. The vibrations on Apollo 6 were vicious, alternating backward and forward at the rate of 5 or 6 cycles per second, producing stresses on the order of plus or minus 10 Gs. The pogo continued for 10 seconds, then stopped. The only people who were aware of the pogo in real time were the Marshall engineers in Huntsville, who were watching the detailed data coming into their own version of the MOCR, the HOSC, Huntsville Operations Support Center. The rest of the S1C burn was uneventful. In the MOCR, everything looked normal. The Saturn V staged and the 5 J2 engines on the S2 ignited and ran up to full power. Into the 4th minute of the S2 burn, everything still looked normal. Then the screens in the trench began acting up, showing erratic data. This was not unusual. The trench got its tracking data from several sources, and one of Fido's main jobs during a normal launch was to work with a controller who sat downstairs in Building 30's communications center, selecting the clearest channel. As Fido J. Green shifted to a new data source at 4.5 minutes into the burn of the S2, Wolf's console began showing data that might either reflect a data problem or indicate that Engine 2 was faltering. He couldn't tell which. Seconds later, the console showed that the engine had shut down altogether. This was bad enough, but then came the shocker. 1.3 seconds later, without any warning, Engine 3 shut down. That was beyond anyone's imagination, Wolf said later. The chance of one of the 5 engines on the S2 stage shutting down was small. The chance that 2 of these independent systems would shut down simultaneously was infinitesimal. Jay Green got his first word over the airwaves as the controllers referred to speech not spoken into headsets. "We got 2 engines out," exclaimed an off-duty booster standing behind Wolf. Wolf was staring at the screen, thinking he had to be getting bad data. Then he looked up at the trajectory plot board. Until then, the course of the Saturn V, snaking its way up and across the plot board, had overlain the planned trajectory almost exactly. Now it was visibly deviating, falling under the expected altitude. Because the likelihood of a dual failure was so remote, the Marshall engineers had not spent much time analyzing how the Saturn V would behave with 2 engines out. But even the preliminary analyses seemed to indicate conclusively that the vehicle would tumble out of control. They had a euphemism in the space program for such unlikely failures: a bad day. You didn't bother to plan for bad days. By definition, they were the kind of thing that the gods did to you sometimes, and the best thing to do was go home and have a drink and come back the next day to pick up the pieces. Back in the 3rd row, Charlesworth had not heard the exclamation from the off-duty booster. Wolf's voice finally came over the flight director's loop. "Flight, booster." That was the protocol. Say the name of the person you were calling on the loop, then identify yourself. Go. "We've lost Engine 2 and Engine 3. Wolf's voice was expressionless. "You've lost the engines?" Charlesworth said with a perceptible "oh shit" tone in his voice. "That's affirmative," said Wolf. "Roger, it's your action." In the unmanned Apollo flights, pushing Booster 1's abort switch would directly cause the Saturn V to abort. Booster 1 had the authority to push it on his own initiative. Given the point of the burn at which the shutdown occurred, the mission rules told Wolf to do so. But as he watched the trajectory tracing on the big screen, the deviation wasn't as bad as the analyses had predicted. There wasn't any tumbling. 3 seconds of silence passed as Wolf tried to figure out what was going on. Are those adjacent or opposite? Charlesworth finally asked. The 5 engines of the S2 were hung from crossbeams in the same arrangement as the F1s in the first stage, with the 5th engine in the middle of the crossbeam. If the 2 engines that had shut down were opposite each other, control would be easier to maintain than if the engines were adjacent. They were adjacent, unfortunately, but Wolf was too busy to answer. Another 3 seconds of silence. Finally, Booster 2 came on the line. Flight Booster 2, we seem to have good control at this time. Roger. Guidance system performing nominally, Flight. It was Neil Hutchinson chiming in from the Guido console. Roger, said Charlesworth, who by now hadn't heard from Booster 1 for an eternity. Charlesworth prodded him. You sure, Booster? The language of the Mooker was one of the most economical in the world, for encapsulated in those 3 words was a long list of questions. Are you really sure that the Saturn V is under control, Booster? Charlesworth was asking. Are you sure that you shouldn't hit that abort switch, Booster? Are you sure you know what you're doing, Booster? All of that and more was in those 3 words. But from his tone, Charlesworth might have been asking Booster whether he really wanted another cup of coffee. Down on the front row, Wolf had been going through quiet agonies. The philosophy of the German team at Marshall, instilled in each of its Americans as well, was all in one direction. Be disciplined, be professional, and don't improvise, especially during an actual flight. The heritage of Marshall was unmanned automated vehicles. The Marshall guys were very nervous about these flight controllers, as one Marshall engineer recalled. The idea of somebody being able to send a command to the rocket was a little bit strange to them. On the first all-up flight of the Saturn V the preceding November, Booster had sent just such a command, not planned in advance, when there had been a little glitch in the propulsion system of the S4B. He did the right thing, the Marshall engineer said, but it was a little bit questionable at the time, and some people questioned it. They questioned it so much, in fact, that Booster 1 for that flight had had a nervous breakdown, and that's why Bob Wolf had been pressed into service so abruptly. In this case, the pre-planned, disciplined, by-the-book action was clear-cut. 2 adjacent engines out is an abort situation. But contrary to all the predictions, the thing seemed to be flying. So, in response to Charlesworth's question, "You sure, Booster?" Wolf just said, "Data indicates it, Flight." And they wrote it out. The guidance system on the Saturn worked better than anyone had figured it could under such circumstances. They extended the burn on the remaining 3 engines for a minute, using the propellants that hadn't been used by the 2 silent engines. Then they staged, and that's when Fido J. Green began to earn his money. After the 2 engines had gone out, the vehicle had maintained a pitched-up attitude known as Chi freeze for far longer than it would have under ordinary circumstances. Well, the S4B lit up, Green recalled, and the first thing it said was, "Oh my God, I've got too much altitude," and so it pointed its nose straight at the center of the Earth. This battle between the guidance system and the gimbal limits on the engine continued for about 80 seconds, with Green getting closer and closer to an abort call of his own. When the S4B finally gave up trying to get to the altitude it wanted, it had a flight path angle that was unacceptably low. So then the little devil said, "Well, this is bad, I've got to pick up the flight path angle." So it started pitching up, and as it started pitching up, it said, "Now I'm over speed," so it actually went into orbit, thrusting backward. The plot boards showing where the Saturn had wandered looked as if a drunk had been drawing the trajectory. It was, without question, the most exciting powered launch anybody in the Mooker had ever witnessed. A fascinating flight, Green said tersely, his very first shift in the Mooker. What was he doing all this time? Puckering. There was more to come. After waiting for 2 orbits, it came time to relight the S4B for a simulation of translunar injection, and it didn't relight. The S4B had now failed, and the controllers used the smaller Service Propulsion System, SPS engine on the service module as a substitute. They managed to complete most of the maneuvers in the flight plan, and the spacecraft was returned safely to Earth. But there remained two sobering, unassailable facts. The pogo in the first stage was so severe that a crew might have been injured, had to abort, or both, and 3 separate engines had failed. Later that day, in the early afternoon, Martin Luther King was shot and killed as he stood on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, and the United States moved from a time of troubles to one of domestic crisis. The rest of the world paid little attention to the Apollo 6 flight one way or the other. Insofar as anyone noticed, it looked like a success. NASA announced accurately that all of the mission's major flight test objectives had been achieved. Within NASA, Apollo 6 was deeply disquieting.
And that was Chapter 22, You've Lost the Engines, from Apollo by Charles Murray and Catherine Bly Cox. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host and the only true conservative in the United States. Today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there and reminding you that atheism doesn't exist.